EMCOMM going 10-8. What's up, people? A few months ago I lost this knife. This is a Spyderco Tenacious made in China. It was a beater. I did everything that I was not supposed to do with this knife because I didn't care. And finally I lost it somewhere, and it showed up months later. In the meantime, as a replacement, I was attracted to this knife, the Spyderco Vox Anzo Pingo model. It's only a slip joint, but I really like the design of the blade. It's really light, less than 2 ounces, and I EDC'd this for a few weeks and I really loved it. And it slips into my pocket and disappears. After that, I kind of liked the design of the blade itself, and went doing some research on the Vox Anzo designers from Denmark. Two separate guys, two separate designers. I seen this on the web. It's the Fox Knives model number FX305, and it's got that sort of Warren Cliff sort of sheepsfoot hybrid design there of the blade, which I really like. I like this knife so much that I brought another one from Boker Plus, or the Boker Knife Company. It's practically the same knife, spitting image, made in the same place by Fox Knives, but Boker put their name on it, and they have a different finish on it, stonewash finish, and some little subtle differences as well, like the belt clip. But they're practically the same knife. But I liked it a lot, and I got it too. And I rotate this in my EDC line as well. And this has worked out really well for me too. It's a bit bigger, about half an inch bigger than the Pingo there. It's a lockback, where this is a slip joint. And I rotated these two for EDC for quite a while. In the process of researching, a replacement for my main EDC that I lost, the Tenacious, I went back to my old standby. The USGI issued pocket knife, general purpose. It's got a few nicknames, one being the demo knife, another being the US knife. Every time that I ever lose a knife, this is what I go back to, this USGI issued knife here. In the Marine Corps, this crusty old staff sergeant that got busted down numerous times introduced me to this knife here, and he gave me one, because they pretty much just give these things away back in the day. And I've always had it. I never lost it, always used it. And it was a really good utility knife. For the most part, us preppers or preparedness minded guys and everything, we're not in the business of destroying things. We're in the business of making things better, fixing things, getting things back to tip-top shape. And this pretty much represents that sort of line of thought. This crusty old staff sergeant that got busted down numerous times and always getting in trouble gave me a knife just like this one back in the day, and it was very useful back in the day. It had everything that I needed at the time. The main blade, not too big, not too small, but it got the job done. Can opener, which we really didn't use that much, really, unless you were camping. We used MREs, so with that you could practically open it with your bare hands, but the knife part of it worked pretty well. A bottle opener, which was really handy for us, opening up beer bottles and whatnot when I used to drink back in the day. And a screwdriver at the tip of this here. And then it has an all leather punch, which was really useful as well. All these blades and tools were used constantly. Just drop this in your pocket. You never lost it. You have a bail here to attach a line to it, attach it to your belt loops. It was a really good piece of kit. Before EDC was even an acronym used in such a way that we use it today. And that was it. Nothing special. This has been in the United States Armed Forces for about 63 years. But then I stopped using this recently because the company that made this, Camillus, has went under. And slowly but surely these knives are becoming a sort of poor man's collector's item. So I stopped using it. Well, I still do use it, at least this model here. They're sort of a dime a dozen. They're from $10 to $30 for a recent model. This one is made in 1992. Potentially there's more of these out there. An estimate that I heard was 10 million knives in the 63 years of this knife being in US inventory. A workhorse of a pocket knife that really does not have much of a following or recognizable or noteworthy to the general public, or the keyboard commando crew and whatnot. Pretty much those guys there would want something, a stabbing weapon like this, or a K-bar, or a Mark 1 Navy knife, U.S. Air Force survival knife that looks like a K-bar. But this here was your everyday jarhead, soldier, sailor, airman sort of EDC for those guys. Just a plain old pocket knife to take care of your everyday task. Even back in the day where they had sea rations where you needed the can opener to open those guys up so you could eat. But even when those went sort of obsolete and they went over to the MREs with the heavy duty plastic bags, well, you still have your main blade there to open that sucker up too and start eating. Very useful, and I use this almost every day. So the history of this knife was in the 1940s, the US government needed, specifically the United States Marine Corps, needed a pocket knife that would do, your mundane cutting task or whatnot for your soldiers and Marines out there. So instead of reinventing the wheel, they took a look at the Swiss Army knife, and these pictures here are some examples of those knives that they use back in 1891. That's the year that it was introduced to the German army, and I think and the Swiss army as well. Of course, it being known as the Swiss Army knife. A few GIs, had a few of those and came back with it, and the United States government took a look at it and say, hey, why should we reinvent the wheel? This design from the Swiss was, perfect as it is, and real useful and functional at the time. So let's jump back to the present here with my quest for an EDC knife. I started looking around and got attracted to the Victorinox ALOX handled knives here. And this one here is not the soldier model or the pioneer model, which is their civilian version of the soldier model. The soldier models are pretty expensive. They're like $125 if you buy one today, and they don't make them anymore. That is the original, not the original, but the Swiss Army knife from 1961 to 2008. And this model here, this is the electrician model, but it's very similar in size and dimensions to the Swiss Army knife. And I bought this for $30, $29.50, something like that on Amazon, free shipping, and it was a deal. The quality when you get it is really nice. I mean, it's really attractive. It's elegant. It's an elegant, nice design that fits into your pocket real nice. It's nice and light, coming in at 2.5 ounces roughly. Slim. I love this from the day one, and I've been carrying this now for about a month and a half now, and I use it practically every single day. So one day I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the tools, and I'm like, man, I know this knife. I've seen this before. It's almost a spitting image of the USGI pocket knife here. It's almost the same dimensions. I mean, we're talking about maybe 1 millimeter of size difference as far as the length. The height, the USGI knife is a little bit taller, just on one end, and a little bit fatter. They're practically almost the same thickness, almost. The knives are almost identical in size. The USGI has a little bit more real estate this way. It's a little bit thicker that way. But other than that, they're spitting image right there. The thickness is almost the same. I think the one on the Swiss Army knife here is a tad bit thicker on closer to the end here. Overall, it looks a little bit thicker, except towards the end where they're almost identical, and they both orientate the same way as far as how it comes out of the knife itself when you open it up. The screwdriver can opener are in the same location on the knife on both models. Though the USGI model is a bit longer, but the blade face of the screwdriver, the Swiss Army knife, is a bit wider. The thickness, they're practically the same, though this has a little bit more beef because of the length of it, and rock solid as far as, you know, prying abilities on both these knives. The all leather punch are orientated in the same manner on both knives, identical as far as where they're placed. The all on the USGI knife, it's a little bit longer. The width of it is, I would say it's almost the same. Maybe a little bit wider on the end on the USGI model. Both still awesome pieces of kit. I use this almost every day, just about. Little mundane tasks. I don't have the original Swiss Army knife design. I bought the electrician model, so where the can opener is supposed to be, like on this USGI model, I have a sheepsfoot blade on the electrician model. So like I said, they're not similar, but it's the same location. But on the soldier model, they do have a can opener / little screwdriver on this particular model here, and they orientate in the same sort of location as the USGI model here. I have more use for this tool in this multi-tool here, or Swiss Army knife, than I do for a can opener. And I find myself using this blade hell a lot more than I use the main blade for, you know, tougher, you know, mundane tasks here and there. So I was asking myself, what came first out of this design here, because obviously the US model was somewhat of a copy of the original 1891 model. They just changed the scales for the stainless steel scales here and slimmed it down a bit and made it soldier proof, marine proof, service member proof. And then in 1961 the Swiss Army knife changed over to aluminum scales on theirs. If you take a look at them, they're really similar. Even the pins, if you put them side by side, they almost line up perfectly with each other. The assembly pins there, the rivets. So the US Army and Marine Corps copied the design from the Swiss during World War II, but then later the Swiss copied the USGI model in 1961. So it appears. The historical sort of chronological history of this particular design of metallic scales, and the orientation of the blades and whatnot. So I thought that was pretty interesting. This, of course, took off worldwide as the bee's knees of multi-tools for everyone to use, where this has only remained in pockets of nostalgic service people out there in the United States, to just get lost in their pockets and sort of forgotten and being taken granted for. The USGI model has went into production way before the Swiss Army knife here. So this one here, like I said, is a 1992 production model. Here I have an original Kingston United States Marine Corps Commission USGI pocket knife here. If you look at it, it's exactly the same as the other example that I showed you. Can opener, main blade, and the leather punch. And this model here was made in between 1945 and 1947. It has brass liners here instead of your stainless steel liners, and the blade themselves are carbon steel, not stainless steel. This I got off of eBay for a really good price and a really good condition for being, I don't know what, 60 years old. The scales here, usually they're marked just US. This one here is marked United States Marine Corps. So here in the World War II United States Marine Corps Commission pocket knife here, you see that the can opener here, the bottle opener, and the blade is orientated the same as the 1961 to 2008 model Swiss Army knife here, as far as the orientation of the blades and stuff. 1943 to 1944, the same knife had the can opener on the same plane as the main blade, and the can opener on the opposite end, whereas 1944 and up, it was orientated to the same design that everybody's familiar with. So this here I could somewhat date from 1943 to 1944, because that's where the transition between the two has taken place. World War II utility knife. And this knife here, the blade and orientation followed the 1891 model of the Swiss Army knife. So here you see a little bit of history between these two, where they both sort of copied each other as far as a design. But the main thing to kind of take away with this design is that it's a timeless design, because similar to the 1911 45 pistol, this has remained in the service of both countries, the US and the Swiss Army, for many decades. We're talking about 60 years plus, as far as a design that never changed, and to this day is still practical in every sense of the word. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and I wanted to kind of point that out in the video as far as military history of design of just a simple, inconspicuous, highly take it for granted pocket knife in the United States inventory, and not so much in the Swiss Army knife, because as you know, everyone and their grandma has one of these. This has taken off where this hasn't. And for now, this is my main EDC knife that I use every day now, in rotation with the other knives that I showed you. Alright guys, GorillaComm going 10-10.